Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. So today, in front of me from Chicken Cock Whiskey, we have the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and we have the Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. I'd like to give a shout out to my buddy Aaron, who supplied me with the samples to review on the channel. So without further ado, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So the Chicken Cock story goes, established in 1856 in Paris, Kentucky, a town tucked away in the heart of Bourbon County, the original Chicken Cock American whiskey rose to popularity during the 19th century. James A. Miller built a distillery and started making Chicken Cock, a type of whiskey unique to the bluegrass region. It was an infamous staple of prohibition-era speakeasies like the Cotton Club, and was smuggled inside in nondescript tin cans. Unfortunately, the original distillery where Chicken Cock was made burned down in the 1950s. Known as the famous old brand, Chicken Cock whiskey has now been resurrected because good spirits never go out of style. Staying true to the rich 160-year-old brand identity while modernizing it just a touch, the products we've created are an unsurpassable collection of heritage whiskeys. Alright guys, so I have both these whiskeys poured. I have the bourbon over here and the rye over here. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is 90 proof and is aged for a minimum of 2 years. So let's go ahead and get into the nose. So first thing I get, I definitely get some corn on the nose. Right away, I get some corn. Followed up by almost like a little bit of a grassy note, like an earthy note. But some of the underlying tones is a really nice honey and some nice dried fruits. It's actually just a tad of like a little lemon zest in there, just a little bit deeper into the glass. I mean, for the most part, it's a fairly sweet nose. Again, there's a little bit of some of those earthy tones in there, and definitely some corn present. Let's go ahead and get into the palate. Cheers. Yeah, so kind of identical to the nose. Definitely picking up some corn. There's definitely some corn present on the palate. Not as many earthy notes on the palate as were on the nose. There is a fruity character though that is kind of sitting along the middle of the palate. Almost reminds me of maybe some like dried apples, maybe a little bit of like dried raspberry in there. It's a little different. Touch of honey on the front of the palate. A little bit of honey, like sweetness on the front of the palate. Middle of the palate, there's some of those dried fruits. Picked up a little bit of dried fruit on the nose. Again, there's not a ton of layers here. Kind of a more along the basic, a basic palate. Some sweetness, some fruitiness. Really not too much of a finish on here. The fruit that was sitting on the middle of the palate does kind of start to flow towards the back of the palate and into the finish. The finish is just very short. It's not very viscous or mouth coating. It is, however, again, it is sweet. It is very sweet. And again, there is no age statement on here, but we know it is aged a minimum of at least 2 years. This definitely does drink like a 90 proofer. No hotter than that. Go into the last taste here, guys. Cheers. Yeah, so the front of the palate, again, you get some of that honey. That last sip, I definitely got some more corn on the middle of the palate there, along with those fruits, dried fruits. Maybe like, again, maybe a little bit like an apple and like a raspberry, nice like a red berry. aspect to it. Follows through into the finish, and then again the finish just kind of goes away. There's nothing really that's lingering there. It all kind of hangs around the middle to the back of the palate. Again, 90 proof, so it's not. Again, it doesn't drink any hotter than that. So the flavors, they develop a little bit, but it's not. To me, it wasn't very consistent as far as the layers of flavor and how they should develop along the palate. Again, pretty good for, again, at least a 2-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. All right, guys, so I just got done finished trying the Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey and about to try the Kentucky straight rye whiskey. What I do know about this, it is 90 proof. It is aged for a minimum of 2 years. The mash bill is 95% rye, and the remaining 5% is undisclosed. So let's go ahead and get into the nose. Actually, really nice nose on the rye. Nice lemon zest, just a little bit of dill, not too much, not overpowering. So what's kind of nice about this is I'm not really picking up a lot of youth on the nose for the rye. Again, just a little bit of dill, some nice lemon zest. Actually, maybe a little bit of honey in there too. But the lemon is definitely present. That is the really strong note in there. Very little bit of dill. Not really picking up any mint on the nose. All right, guys, let's go into the taste here. Cheers. Yeah, so on the front of the palate, I'm actually getting a little bit of pepper, like a white pepper on the palate. Just like the nose, that citrus is really just covering the entire palate. The nice mix of like lemon and an orange kind of playing back and forth there on the sides of the palate. Actually, it kind of flows into the back of the palate too, like how the Kentucky straight bourbon, how those fruit flavors kind of went from the mid palate into the finish. That like citrus is kind of going from the sides of the palate into the back of the palate as well. Going to the second sip, guys. Cheers. Yeah, so it develops. Again, this isn't this drinks like it's a 90 proofer. No hotter. There's really not a lot of rye spice on it that's giving you that burn. It's actually very subtle on the palate. Some of that pepper on the front of the palate starts to mingle into the middle. The middle of the palate is those citrus notes, the lemon and the mix with the orange, and that's fallen into the back of the palate. The pepper note doesn't follow through, but there's actually a little bit. There's actually a little bit of fruitiness, like a berry aspect to it on the finish. I don't know if that's because I had that with the Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, but just a very, very slight berry note on the back of that. Very, very unique. No dill whatsoever on the palate. Let's go to the last sip, guys. Cheers. Yeah, so the front of the palate, again, there's that pepper. It's not the rye spice. It's a pepper note and like a white pepper note. Middle of the palate, you get that citrus, that lemon, that orange follows through into the finish. Finish is short to medium, a little bit longer than it was with the bourbon. overall, for me, I actually prefer the rye over the bourbon. Nothing wrong with either one of these. The Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey, again, it's you can still kind of taste the youth in it, not in a bad way. It has some of those earthy notes in there. I do like on the Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey. I do like the front and the middle of the palate. On the rye, I like the middle, the palate into the finish. Overall, really good stuff coming out of Chicken Cock whiskey. I would say, if you guys are ever out at a bar, definitely, try either one of these to see if these would suit your palate. Again, nice fruity flavors on both of them. The Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey was more like the apple and the raspberry. On this one, it was more of the lemon and the orange kind of playing on the middle of the palate. But overall, really good stuff coming out of Chicken Cock whiskey. I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And I want to thank my buddy Aaron and Chicken Cock Whiskey for supplying with the samples to review on the channel. So if you guys are looking for reviews of bourbons, ryes, or some of those Dusties, hit that subscribe button and bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You can also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And until next time, guys, stay dusty.